Hey guys, it's Crystal. I hope you guys are all doing well today and that you've had a good week. I don't know about you, but after those last three videos, I'm so tired, guys. If you put them all together, I didn't realize it, but it's like 4 hours worth of material on Bernardo and Homolka. So apologies that they were long videos, but I had to get the whole story out. There is one further piece of information I actually didn't mention in my last video, and that's that Paul Bernardo actually wrote a book. I wanna say it was in 2018, but it could have been slightly earlier than that, you know how the years kind of all run together. Anyway, it was released on Amazon. I think it was only there for about a day before there was so much outrage against it. This book was okay, this book was fiction, but it was almost like an account of the crimes he did. It was almost like when OJ wrote that book, like what I would have done or what I had if I had been the killer, I think was something like that. Anyways, it was almost like that. It was like a fictionalized account of his crimes. And of course, in the States, there's something called the Son of Sam law. So you can't actually profit off of your victims or your crimes. In Canada, there is a law, and it's actually because of Karla Homolka, that is similar to that, which means that the killers or the person that did the crime cannot profit off of their victims or by selling their own story. So there is something similar to that. Anyway, he did have the book up. I didn't add it in my last video. The book was removed, but he did write a book. So like I said, guys, I really do hope that you guys are all doing well today. I know it's almost Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the moms or guardians or aunts or nieces or sisters, anybody that takes on that mothering role. Happy Mother's Day to you guys. If you're new to this channel, like I said, my name's Crystal and I do Canadian true crime or true crime with a Canadian twist. From time to time, I do use crimes from other nationalities as well. If that's something that you guys want to be involved in, please, please, please click that old like button, hit the subscribe button. That really helps me out. Share if you want to, ring the notification bell, and leave me some comments. I do always love to see if I've missed anything, if you guys have new theories. A lot of the cases we've covered lately are not so theoretical, but if you guys do have other theories, anything like that, just let me know. If you guys do choose to leave comments, though, no hate. There's already enough hate in the world, so we're just here to talk. And if you guys are returning subscribers, you guys already know how much I love you and how thankful I am that you guys choose to listen to my sometimes long-winded videos. So today we are actually doing an international crime. I thought this was a good time to discuss this crime for multiple reasons, actually. But we spent so much time in Ontario, guys, doing the Bernardo and Homolka case that I thought today would be a good time to slip in an international case. And actually, all this month, we're going to be doing something called crossover crimes. I don't usually do themes or anything like that, but I figured we'd do some crossover crimes. So either the perpetrator is Canadian and they've killed in the States, like Gordon Stewart Northcott, or they've killed elsewhere. I do have one from England. I swear, I didn't forget. Or they're American and they've somehow ended up in Canada. So that's just a little bit of info on what we're going to be doing for the month of May. So today's case is out of Whitehaven, Pennsylvania. This is actually a case that was recommended to me last year by one of my subscribers. So thank you so much for apprising me of this case. This was after I had talked about Septic Tank Sam. This viewer also has more information on Septic Tank Sam as well, and I will share that in another video. We're going to have to do some update videos. We'll discuss that more in a little bit. But I was really into this case. There were so many similarities between this case and the case of Septic Tank Sam. I will be mentioning Sam in this, so if you guys do want to know more about him, I did do a video on him. He's probably one of the first 5 people that I did a video on. He's only known as Septic Tank Sam. And it was not the name I gave to him, I swear. So we are doing the case of Beth Doe and baby Jane Doe. This case has recently, very recently, like this year, guys, been solved. And the identification of this person is now known, her identity, as well as who killed her. So it's very exciting, guys. It's also ironic. I didn't really realize, you know, when we were talking about it last year, that they'd suddenly be able to solve it this year. So that's a really good thing, guys. I'm really excited about that. So Whitehaven is a borough. It's a town. in Pennsylvania, and it has a population of about 1,100 people. It's well known for things like outdoor sports like hiking, whitewater rafting, biking trails, fishing, hunting, all that kind of things. It's well known for that. You actually have about a 1 in 550 chance of becoming a victim of a violent crime in Whitehaven. So there is criminality there. But for the most part, it's a regular town. There is one interesting thing about Whitehaven, though. You know, it took me a little while when I was researching this case because it kept saying Luzerne County, and I kept saying to myself, no, this was in Carbon County. Whitehaven is actually broken into 2 counties. Okay, so the west side is Luzerne County, but the east side is Carbon County, and the east side is what we're focusing on today. There's a bridge that goes over it, and half of the bridge is actually painted red, and half of it's painted yellow to show the distinction between the counties. So, on December 20th of 1976, a 14-year-old boy named Kenneth Jumper Jr. was just playing on the banks of the Lehigh River. That is the river that goes through Whitehaven. And he was just playing around by himself. It was about 4:30, and he discovered 3 suitcases. Now, these suitcases were all the same size. 2 of them were farther away than the other one, and 2 of them had popped open, revealing their contents, and the contents were very grisly, guys. So the 2 that had popped open contained the body parts of a young person. It was the person's head, their torso, which was cut in 2, and a fetus. Police were immediately called to the scene. When they opened the 3rd suitcase that hadn't popped open, it contained the arms and the legs of this person. They knew they were dealing with someone young. So they took the contents and they transferred it to, I hope I'm saying this right, guys, the the Gaddon Hutton. I hope I'm saying it right. Hospital, which is actually now St. Luke's Laheyton campus, and this would be in Laheyton, PA. I really hope I'm not butchering these names too much, guys. Sorry. And that's about 31 minutes away from Whitehaven. So they had to take this person there, obviously, to do an autopsy. So police were able to determine that the victim was likely Caucasian. They said this victim was likely between the height of 4'11" and 5'4", and that this person had weighed between 130 and 150 pounds when they were living at this point in time. They were able to ascertain that she was female. And they also believed that she was the mother of the baby that had been found. So she had brown hair and brown eyes. She had a mole on her left cheek and one above her left eyebrow. They figured that these moles, police figured that these moles had formed when she was pregnant. So she didn't have them likely before her pregnancy. They also knew that she had a 2-inch scar on her left calf and a 5.5-inch scar on her left leg just above the heel. They were able to see that. Unfortunately, this victim's nose, ears, and breasts had been removed. They were removed with some degree of knowledge, and they were removed with a fine serrated knife. Police were able to ascertain that. Investigators believed that she was either originally Croatian or Serbian, but when they looked at it a little harder, they figured she was from, her ethnicity was Mediterranean. So either Italian or Spanish. Those were the first 2 ethnicities that she resembled. But they did figure she was Caucasian. She was light-skinned. And they were able to ascertain that she had been at least 9 months pregnant when this murder had occurred. Police did not recover the missing body parts. As far as I know, guys, they never recovered them. I've never read anything that said they were able to find them. So they were unable to find her nose, they were unable to find her ears, and they were unable to find her breasts. The victim had been sexually assaulted prior to death. She was also strangled and shot in the neck. The medical examiner was able to ascertain that she had been strangled, and that is what killed her. Strangulation was her cause of death, and that she had been shot in the neck afterwards, after she had already died. We don't really know why. It could be that the perpetrator just wanted to make sure she was dead. And it looked like the baby, some sources say, had been cut. Some sources say had been removed. So in some manner, the baby had been removed from her womb. Police did not have a lot to go on, guys. The body was nude when she was found, and obviously so was the baby. There was no identifying factors at all. There were no clothing, no purse, no ID, no car keys, nothing like that for police to go on. They literally only had the body parts, the baby, the suitcases in which the body parts had been found, a blanket that had been wrapped around some of the body parts, and a newspaper. That it also, I guess, some packing foam and straw or hay that had been found within the suitcases. That's all the police had to go on. So there were a couple identifying factors, though, about her that were quite unique. So when we talked about Septic Tank Sam, we talked about his teeth. They knew from looking at Septic Tank Sam's body that his teeth had been in very good condition and had been recently worked on. He had good teeth. This was not the case with this individual. This individual had at least 3 teeth that had been extracted, and from all reports, they were the molars, some of the back molars. This person, she had extensive work done on her teeth, extensive restorations, and she also had some fillings as well. So medical personnel were able to ascertain that she had some work done at some point in time. Her dental work when she was a child was not good, or she hadn't had any of that at all. At some point in time, she had dental work done, but at the time of her murder, her teeth were in pretty bad shape. They had a lot of decay on them. She also had a broken incisor that it was fractured, and it would have been causing her a lot of pain, and it was also noticeable to other people. It would have been very noticeable. So police were excited about that lead, and of course the dental x-rays were sent out to dentists in the area, but nobody was able to identify the work as theirs. So that lead was still out there. They still were able to work with that lead a little bit, but this didn't reveal anything either. She also had no broken bones either, guys. No broken bones. They figured she likely hadn't seen a dentist in some time by the point in time that she had been murdered. I'm sorry, guys. I know it can get confusing. It was confusing in my head too, but I hope I've laid it out for you okay. Now, the second identifying thing was that on her left palm, she had something written. Okay, so police and medical examiners and other people that talked about this case all interpreted what was written on her hand differently, but they were pretty sure, almost definitively sure, that the letters written on her hand were W, S, and R. And that beside that was either the number 4 or 5, and then below that and slightly to the right would have been either the number 4 or the number 7. That was as far as they were able to ascertain from what was written on her hand. And this was written in ink, guys, so in pen ink. So people thought these numbers could either be like a CB handle. Okay, so like in the 70s, they used to use CBs a lot. Like Smokey and the Bandit. Okay, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but you know, like Breaker 19. They thought it was like a CB handle, or that it was part of a license plate, or that it could have been like a street name, a street number, an address. This was not a very good lead for police. First of all, they couldn't definitively 100% say what the numbers or letters were, and they didn't know what meaning this message had to the case. Like if there was any meaning, or if this had just been something she had written down, like I don't know, maybe a short form for something. Our own shorthand, guys, is distinctive to us. So that's why it was so confusing. Now, it was written on her left hand. So investigators were pretty certain she was right-handed. As long as she had written this stuff by herself, she would have written it on her left hand. You can't really very well if you're right-handed, right on your right hand. So they were pretty certain she was also a right-handed individual at this point in time. They were able to ascertain, though, that ink lasts for, I think it's between 8 to 12 hours on a living individual. So they were able to develop a timeline for her death at this point in time, and they said that she was killed between 7 and 24 hours of when she had been found. They were also able to say this because of her features. I know she was missing her nose and her ears, but the rest of her face was recognizable. It didn't seem to be decaying very fast. There didn't seem to be an awful lot of decomposition at this point in time. So they were also baffled about the mutilation. Okay, it did take them a few days to be able to identify her as female. Because of the removal of her breasts. So this is also interesting because in the case of Septic Tank Sam, they knew his groin region. It took them a while to figure out if he was a man or a woman because his groin region had extensive mutilation on it. So it was almost like with the case of both of these, and Sam was found in 1977. They were pretty certain he was killed in 1976 too. See where the parallel is. Although Sam was found in Tofield, Alberta. I'm just using Sam's case as saying like this happened and this happened. So they were able to ascertain that she was female, and that she had been sexually assaulted. But the removal of her breasts kind of confused them for a while, and they weren't certain why they had been removed. It was almost like the offender was trying to get rid of tributes of her femininity. I don't think she had any mutilation on her private region, but with the case of Septic Tank Sam, there had been extensive mutilation on his groin, his masculine parts. So it was almost like someone was attacking them because of their gender. However, they were able to ascertain that the mutilation had been done after she was murdered. The mutilation and the dismemberment were done after she was already dead, whereas with Septic Tank Sam, the mutilation had been done when he was most likely alive. Police believed that the victim was born between 1954 and 1960. And they were able to find out that her blood type was 0, or was O. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure about the baby, but they were able to ascertain that her blood type was blood type O. This was 1976, guys. There was no DNA. It wasn't even in its infancy then. They were just developing things at that point in time. So generally, they would use someone's blood type to either try to figure out their ID or try to figure out if there were any other blood types on them, maybe exclusive to an offender. When we talked about Paul Bernardo, we talked about the fact that they were able to figure out he was a non-secretor, and only 20% of the population is a non-secretor. So they knew they were able to lessen their offender pool that way. And a non-secretor is somebody that does not secrete their blood type within their saliva or any other bodily fluid. I don't know how far they went with the blood typing, like if they were able to figure out she was a secretor or a non-secretor. I'm not sure about that. I just know that they were able to find out that her blood type was O. And this was kind of exciting. They thought this would be a lead for them, but it didn't turn anything up either. So the baby was found to be female. She was a full-term female fetus. She was very recognizable. Her features were all recognizable, and they were able to find out that she had literally been taken from the womb. But it doesn't appear that there was any damage on the baby at all. I'm not sure when she was taken. Babies can live for a little bit when their moms are murdered. We know this from other cases where the baby has been taken from the womb, but obviously if she had been taken out and had breathed, she didn't live for very long. She was more than likely removed after she as well was already dead. And they were able to ascertain from the fact that she was fully formed that her mother had been at least 9 months pregnant at the time of death. I guess the medical examiner was also able to see that her features were somewhat swollen due to pregnancy, and the area on her stomach, which was, I just want to remind you guys that the torso was cut in two. They were able to see the area that had once held the baby. So they were able to know that from that. They also said that the baby appeared to be Caucasian. Attention, because they didn't have much by way of being able to ID the victims, attention was paid then to the things that she was found with and the suitcases. So like I said, there were 3 suitcases and they were all the same size. I believe the size was 23 by 14 by 7.5. So that's fairly large, guys. Oddly enough, I used to work at a luggage store, so I do know some things about luggage. This would have been our standard large size luggage for if you're going away on vacation for like a week. You can pack quite a few things on it. They knew it had side zippers, and they also knew that 2 of them were blue soft vinyl, and that they had, I just want to make sure I'm getting this right, guys. They had side zippers, and that there were red, white, and blue, like a red, white, and blue stripe on one portion. So the third was blue and tan plaid. It had zippers as well. Side zippers as well. I should say it was blue and plaid with brown vinyl trim. So it was blue and plaid, blue and, God, I can't say it today. Blue and tan plaid with brown vinyl trim and the 2 zippers. Now, interestingly enough, the handles on all of these suitcases had been removed, and the zippers themselves had been spray painted black. They knew it was spray paint, I'm going to guess, from the way it was. I'm just going to see if I can pull up a picture, guys, for you of the suitcases. Sorry, guys, just one second. I was able to find, there we go. So hopefully you guys can see them. Hopefully it isn't too blurry. I know these are kind of smaller pictures, but that's what the suitcases looked like. So police were pretty excited about the paint lead. They were really looking to solve this or try to ID this person in any way. So they were excited about the paint lead. You guys know that from a lot of other cases, if you can trace paint to a specific place, you can find out if that's something that was used a lot or that was something specific to only one area, only one building, only one workplace. They do this a lot with cars, and it's car paint is fairly specific. So they are able to get information that way. So police were excited about this lead. They did send away the paint to be tested, and it was just found to be a black flat spray paint, and it was fairly generic. So that lead eventually dried up for them. Now, the suitcases also had straw, like I said before, and packing foam in them. The packing foam and straw was dry, but they were also generic. So that lead quickly dried up as well. So unlike with a lot of cases, police really did try to solve this case. They put a lot of care and a lot of effort into this case, particularly because they had a young pregnant female who was dismembered and who had been shoved into suitcases and thrown off of a bridge. We're going to get to that, trust me. And with her baby. So they were very concerned, and they very much wanted to solve who this was. She didn't match up with any of the missing persons reports from the Pennsylvania area. So they did release sketches of her later on. when no one did come forward to claim this individual or her baby, police and the whole entire county did really try to remember and to be very respectful of this duo. They were a big giant mystery for a lot of years, so they really did try to. But because no one had come forward, they decided to give her the nickname Beth Doe, and her baby was known as Baby Jane Doe. So investigators did have two more pieces of evidence. She was wrapped in a blanket. Like I said, her parts of her body were wrapped in a blanket. I'm not totally sure which parts, but parts of her body were wrapped in a blanket. This was a chenille blanket, so like kind of that nubbly stuff. It's like soft but nubbly. They make sweaters out of it too. But they knew it was like a bedspread. It resembled a bedspread, guys. So not like bed sheets itself, but like the actual bedspread or bed cover. They knew it was rust or coral in color, so like a pinkish, and that it was worn and that it was dirty. It was also cut into 3 pieces. So I'm not sure if those 3 pieces, like one was in every suitcase, or the 3 pieces were just because he wanted to wrap certain body parts in them, or the offender wanted to wrap certain body parts in them. They also noticed that it was embroidered with flowers, and these were yellow flowers, and the type of embroidery thread used to do them was pink, green, and yellow. So they did try to go with that angle, but it was, once again, generic. They weren't able to get any leads from the blanket. It also is interesting to note that Septic Tank Sam had been wrapped in a yellow bed sheet. So, like I said, there's a lot of similarities between these 2 cases. Beth Doe's torso was also covered with a newspaper. So I did mention a newspaper. Her torso was covered with a newspaper. Now, this newspaper was 6 sections of the New York Sunday News. I want to make sure I get it right. And the date on the newspaper was September 26th of 1976. Police figured, though, because she was found in December and she wasn't very decomposed at all, that this newspaper was either something that the offender just had around their house, or that they got from the garbage in order to put on Beth Doe. I'm not sure what the significance of her having the newspaper over her torso was, if this person was trying to throw people off with that way. But this was a lead as well, because it was from New York. They kind of wondered if maybe Beth Doe was also from the New York area. Because of how and where the suitcases were found on the Lehigh River, police were able to ascertain that the person was driving a vehicle along Interstate 80 and had more than likely thrown the suitcases out of the moving vehicle over a bridge. Okay. The bridge that we talked about, the half yellow and half red bridge. And this was Carbon County. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it before, guys, but just in case, this was the east part. They usually call it Whitehaven East, actually, if that helps you guys. So they believed the killer was likely driving westward on the I-80 and threw the suitcases out, to get rid of them. Likely the offender thought that the suitcases would land in the water and either be carried away or would sink down below, due to probably the weight of the body parts. They weren't weighed down with anything. Obviously, the straw and the packing foam is not going to weigh them down, but it could be that the reason the killer did this was that they were hoping they would go into the water and be carried away, and then, nobody would find Beth Doe. One of the suitcases actually landed on the riverbank, so that was the first one that Kenneth Jumper Jr. saw, and 2 of them kind of landed in like a wooded area about 20 feet away, and the drop from the bridge is about 300 feet, guys. So investigators were able to ascertain, sorry, I'm using it a lot, sorry guys, we're able to ascertain because of that the impact was the reason why 2 of the suitcases had popped open. This is really interesting to me because in my mind, I would believe there were 2 killer or killers or two people in the vehicle. It's very, very hard, guys, to drive a vehicle and throw suitcases out at the same time and make sure, like, it's very hard, right? You're driving with one hand, but you have your door open and you're trying to throw the suitcases out. I don't know if you'd be able to throw them out the window. These are large, large suitcases. So it almost seems like there were two offenders or two people at this point in time, one driving, one throwing them out. I'm wondering if it's possible, though, because of the 24-hour time frame, or the 7 to 24 hours, if maybe there was nobody on the bridge and they stopped, but it appears like they were just tossed from a moving vehicle, mostly because they didn't land in the same area. So I should also say that the two that had been opened were the ones, once again, that contained the torso, the fetus, and the head. And the unopened one, like I did say before, contained the arms and the legs. Police at this point in time did release a facial reconstruction. Okay, we've talked about this. We talked about this in the village murders and things like that. So facial reconstruction is basically an artistic rendition of what this person, Beth Doe, looked like in life. Obviously, the artist had to take some artistic liberties in giving her a nose and ears. It was just like up to here, guys, so they didn't have to bother with the breasts. But with the nose and ears, because they never found them, so they had to kind of take license with what she would look like. They also did release pictures of the suitcases and pictures of the blankets. Now, I'm not sure if they released them at that point in time or just the sketch, but they were eventually released to the public in hopes that it would generate leads. Investigators described her injuries. Okay, so the dismemberment, the missing body parts, and figured the killer knew what he was doing, quote, figured the killer, quote, knew what he was doing, end quote. And this was based on the precision of the removal of the facial features. They weren't just hacked off. They were actually done with some precision. And also the removal of the head, the torso being cut in half, and the removal of the arms and the legs. They did show some degree of precision. They did know that this person wasn't like a doctor or a surgeon per se. They weren't that precise, but they kind of figured that this offender could have had either training in being a butcher or training in hunting. Okay, so if you're a hunter and you process your own meat, you would know how to cut joints in certain ways in certain areas. So they figured that the person that did this was either had training as a butcher or was some type of hunter. So due to the extensive dental work, like we've mentioned before, done on Beth Doe, at some point, the police did release her dental x-rays and her photograph, obviously. They did release these to all the dentists within the United States and within Canada. Okay, they did this with Septic Tank Sam in Canada. When they initially had the x-rays, they only released it in Pennsylvania. But then after it didn't generate any leads, they decided to release it nationwide in hopes of generating leads for this case, but also to get the information out there just in case anybody was able to see her picture from a different state and say, oh, I knew this person went missing in this time, in this state. But this was to no avail. No one was able to identify her dental work as their work. Either that or nobody was willing to say it was their work. But it was released in both the States and Canada, and both nations said they didn't know who this person was. However, this was able to be helpful to the police to some degree. They were able to rule out certain missing persons cases in this manner. They were able to say, no, this can't be this person. Now, one of their earlier leads was on a woman named Cheryl Ann Tillinghast. She went missing from Buffalo, New York in 1973. She had been working at the Wassac State School. This is a reform school, guys, in New York. She was working there, and she had disappeared, like I said, in 1973. But police were able to rule out her with regards to this case. In 1983, because nobody had claimed Beth Doe, she was interred. Okay, so it's about 7 years, guys. She laid around in the morgue. They weren't able to generate anything at this point in time, so they thought their best option was to bury Jane Doe, or baby Jane Doe, and Beth Doe at this point in time. So she is buried in Carbon County. She's actually buried in, just give me 1 second, guys, Lorrytown Road Cemetery. So this is in Carbon County, and this cemetery actually used to be known as Carbon County's Potter's Field. This would be a cemetery for people that were poor, for people that were unidentified, or for people that were just never taken from the morgue, guys. This is an area where they would bury people like that were never picked up by their families. So they are buried beneath white crosses, just plain white crosses, and they did have granite markers in front that said baby Jane Doe on one and Beth Doe on the other one. I'm just gonna pull up her facial reconstruction, guys, just to show you. There are actually 2 separate ones, but we'll get into that. I just want to, as far as I know, this picture right here, oh, hopefully you can see that, guys. Sorry. That picture right there is the first sketch that they revealed. So the nice thing about this, I know it's really hard for me to say that when we're talking about cases like this, was that Carbon County and the police services never forgot about Beth Doe or baby Jane Doe. They made sure there were flowers placed on the gravestones. They made sure they were looked after, like the graves themselves. And they put little toys and stuff like that on baby Jane Doe's grave to ensure that these individuals weren't forgotten. Maybe they were unidentified, but Carbon County themselves never forgot about this, and they always took really good care of the grave sites. Investigators never forgot either. So we're going on in a lot of years, guys. So it wasn't until October of 2007 that police were able to exhume Beth Doe and baby Jane Doe. When they were looking at cold cases, they were hopeful, because DNA, of course, was around at this point in time, and they were hopeful that if they got some of her DNA, maybe they'd be able to identify her that way. So they took tissue samples after they exhumed both of them, and they hoped it would lead to something, but at that point in time, in October of 2007, they never revealed anything. This person was not registered anywhere. Her DNA didn't match up with anybody's. It did help rule out other missing persons cases, but it wasn't, they weren't able to get a lead from off of this at this point in time. The nice thing about this, though, is that after they did the exhumation, when they were going back to rebury Beth Doe, they actually gave her a service, guys. Clergymen, like a proper burial, right? Clergymen were involved. The investigators themselves actually acted as pallbearers, and baby Jane Doe was now buried with her mother in the same casket. They put them back, they had them back together again. So new facial recognitions were also generated at this point in time, guys. And in 2008, Beth Doe's DNA was uploaded into CODIS, hoping that possibly an offender. They had other DNA too. I just want to point this out. They hoped that it would ping off of somebody, an offender, so they could at least say who killed her, but nothing came of this. They weren't able to link her to anybody through CODIS. And that would be in 2008 that they did this. In 2011 and in 2012, they did make sure that her picture was on the missing persons database in the States, as well as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, hoping that they would come up with something, but of course they didn't. And I'm just going to show you the newer pictures, which I believe are these two. Sorry, guys. So these are the newer pictures. Ooh, I hope that's not too, sorry, guys. Of Beth Doe, the ones that they were able to create. And this would be actually These ones would be from 2015. So they did facial reconstruction updates throughout the case. So in 2014, okay, samples of Beth's tooth enamel, hair, and bone were sent to the University of Southern Florida for analysis. This is not DNA analysis, guys. This is isotope analysis, in the hopes that they would be able to find out which area of the states or of the world that she came from. This is not an exact science, though, guys. So not everything that investigators are able to find out about this is 100%. It's just something that would generate leads. Like I said, investigators did work pretty hard on this case, so they were at this point in time willing to do anything. So they sent these isotopes, these pieces and fragments of her, to the University of Southern Florida in the hopes that they could come up with something. So these are certain isotopes, guys. They're identifying isotopes that are found in water, and they could tell where an individual has lived during their lifetime based on isotopes found within the waters specific to that region. It's kind of like diatoms, okay? There are specific diatoms in every body of water in specific and varying degrees. So if you're able to test bodies of water, you can see to what degree the diatoms exist and what kind of diatom it is. And they've actually solved cases using this method. It does work. So I think the diatoms had something to do with it too. But from this analysis, investigators, they were able to find certain things in certain degrees. Okay, so Beth Doe's corpse, her actual corpse, not her life before, had been waiting around for identification for 38 years at this point. So, you know, she's fairly decomposed, but they had really high hopes about this. And this type of testing, quote, can divine the contents of water a victim ingested and match the chemicals to a specific location, end quote. So according to the isotope testing, okay, Beth Doe hadn't always lived in the United States. They believed that she had lived someplace in Europe and had moved to the United States 5 to 10 years before she died. They also believed that she lived somewhere in the southeast of the United States when she came here. So they feel like she came here between the ages of when she was a child to when she was a preteen. So 5 to 10 years before her death. And this showed to be around the Tennessee area. They focused on Tennessee a lot, or one of its border states, so Georgia or Alabama. They figured she was from that part of the states when she came and lived in the United States. They also found that baby Jane Doe carried the same southeastern isotopes as her mother did. Obviously, her mother's been feeding her, but you know what I mean. No new leads obviously were generated from this information, although they were able to check more missing persons reports in Tennessee or in Georgia. They were able to do that. So in 2015, the facial reconstructions that I just showed you, they were updated and redone again. And a woman in 2019, okay, had just been perusing websites and had come across these pictures. And she thought she could identify this person. The police were very excited about this lead. So she called them up and she told them a story about a person she had gone to high school with that she had been very good friends with. This person's name was Maggie, we're going to call her Maggie, Cruz. She was known as Maggie to her friends. And she and this person that had phoned in the tip were fairly close friends, guys. And she said that there was a high degree of resemblance between Maggie and the facial reconstructions from 2015. Maggie had spent some time in Massachusetts, specifically Lennox, and Framingham. So in Framingham, she lived with a foster family. And in 1974, while Maggie was living with the foster family, she and her foster sister ran away. And they actually ran away to Tarrytown, Massachusetts. So after about a week, the foster sister returned home, but Maggie did not come with her. In 1976, the summer of 1976, Maggie called up this friend, told her that she was scared, she was pregnant, and she didn't have any money. I think she was asking for this friend to send her money. The friend never heard from her again after this. So this was actually really exciting for the police. First of all, they had somebody who recognized the reconstructions. Second of all, they were super excited because Maggie had said that she was pregnant in the summer of 1976. And obviously, Beth Doe was pregnant in December of 1976, 9 months pregnant. So they figured this was a great lead. However, this was the month of September, and in that month, guys, of 2019, they were able to locate Madeline Maggie Cruz, and she was alive and well. She had just decided to go on with her own life after this and not contact this friend. Maybe the friend hadn't been able to save money or to send money, and Maggie was upset about that. But regardless, for whatever reason, she never contacted the friend again. So, of course, this lead dried up, and this was the most exciting lead to date. So like I said, I was apprised of this case late last year. It's probably November. And the similarities between Septic Tank Sam and Beth Doe had me thinking, oh my God, what if it's the same person that had done this? What if maybe they were able to, you know what I mean? I was really super excited about this. And, like I said, this person did give me more information on Septic Tank Sam as well. So we are going to do an update video. I'm going to discuss that in closing, guys. There are a few cases that need to be updated, and I'll let you know about that a little bit more then. So I had to wait for a time when I was like able to slip this case in. You know how it goes, guys. I usually only do international cases once every couple months. And we had just done Eileen Wuornos. So I figured, okay, I'll wait for a time when we can, slip this in. Well, in the month of March, guys, that would be March. Now, some people say it's the 14th. Some articles said the 14th. Some said the 31st. So I'm going to go with March 14th. Police were able to identify Beth Doe exclusively through forensic genealogy at this point in time. So she has been identified as Evelyn Kalan. I hope I'm saying it right, guys. Kalan or Cologne. I'm going to go with Kalan. Evelyn Kalan, who was 15 and pregnant at the time of her disappearance in 1976. I think with regards to March 31st, guys, that was when the police were able to give a press conference on Beth Doe, but they also named her offender at that point in time, and we'll get into that. So in late 2015 or early 2016, Luis Colon Jr. uploaded his DNA into the database, one of the databases. It was either like 23andMe or Ancestry.com. He uploaded his DNA into this website. He had heard about his missing aunt and cousin for years prior to this, and he thought he could help his family this way. They all figured that Evelyn was alive, and he hoped he would be able to either find her or find his cousin through this. So it's been 44 years, guys. In 2015, it would have been 40 years, 2015, 2016, when he was able to upload his DNA. And this was in the hopes of helping his family solve one of their biggest mysteries. Now, at this point in time, guys, I want to stress that everybody within the Kalan family thought that Evelyn was alive, and we are going to get into that. So it was finally in March of 2021 that Lewis Jr., he already had his DNA results, but he learned that his DNA was a 99.9%, so huge, 99.9% match to an unidentified female, young woman, girl, who had been found in Whitehaven, Pennsylvania, murdered in December of 1976. He learned that he was an almost 100% match through DNA to this person. And so investigators went to talk to him and the family at this point in time. And through this, investigators were able to say, yes, this was Evelyn Kalan. So of course, once again, guys, I do have to pimp out the fact that this was using forensic genealogy, what I call genealogical DNA, what some other people call familial DNA, right, guys? So police are able to, it takes a long time because they have to go through a lot of different people. So they're able to find that two people share a common ancestor and then work their way back that way in order to find out this person's identity. But in this case, her nephew had uploaded his DNA and they were able to get a match that way. They knew that these people showed up as very close family. If you've ever done 23andMe or Ancestry.com, I actually did do Ancestry.com. So I'm able to see like who's my fourth cousin, my second cousin, my first cousin, who's matched to me as a parent because my mom's done it too. Just things like that. So they were able to do that and link them together definitively in this way. And this is the same stuff that was used to identify Joseph James D'Angelo as the Golden State Killer in 2018 and Kelvin Hoover as the killer of Christine Jessup just October of 2020. So Evelyn Kalan was Puerto Rican. She was not white, but she was light-skinned. So that's why initially investigators thought that she was white. She had 4 brothers and sisters, and she was actually born April 17th, 1961. So her oldest brother is actually Louis Kalan Sr. There's going to be a lot of Luises in this, guys. So we're going to call Luis Sr. Luis Sr. We're going to call Luis Jr. Luis Jr. And there is going to be another Luis who we're going to refer to as their last name. So Evelyn would have actually been 60 this year. Just recently, she would have turned 60 had she lived. She was actually a very, very beautiful girl, guys. She was known for her long brown hair, and she had hazel green eyes. She was also light-skinned, like I said before. She and her family lived in an apartment in Jersey City, New Jersey. And at some point in time, she started dating her immediate next door neighbor. His name was Luis Sierra. And at the time, in 1976, Evelyn was 15 and Luis Sierra was 19 years old. It does appear that her brother, her oldest brother, so Luis Sr., was at least friendly with Sierra to some degree. Sierra was either born in 1958 or 1957. I didn't totally pinpoint that, guys, but it was either 58 or 57 he was born. And in high school, so in the 1970s, he went by the nickname Wizzo, W-I-S-O. So it's either Wizzo or Wiso. It's probably Wiso. He went by that nickname. That's what people knew him as. The young couple did move in together to another apartment building in Jersey City. So as far as I can tell, guys, Evelyn lived her whole life in New Jersey. A lot of the stuff from the isotopes appears to be wrong. That's just something I told you guys so that you could see how it wasn't an exact science. A lot of what they had said was wrong. A lot of what investigators thought to some degree was wrong too, particularly about her ethnicity and her we'll say her ethnicity. So they moved to an apartment in Jersey City. Now, I'm not sure if this was before or after Evelyn became pregnant with Luis Sierra's child. The baby was Luis Sierra's child. But I'm not sure if they moved before or after she became pregnant. They just moved at some point in time. And I'm pretty sure it was in 1976 they moved in together. But since this is an ongoing case, guys, at this point in time, right? It was only solved in March of 2021. Because it's an ongoing case, I can't give you a lot of information. I'm going to give you what I can, the best I can, but I can't give you a lot. So the family described Sierra, as jealous, as abusive, and as someone who pretty much kept Evelyn locked up in their apartment, particularly when he wasn't around. She actually told her mom at some point in time that she was afraid of Sierra, and that if anything happened to her, Sierra was more than likely involved. She told her mother this. I do want to stress, though, guys, that, and we'll get into the reasons, that the Kalan family never thought that Evelyn was missing or that the baby was. So that is why there was never a missing persons file on her. They never filed one because they legitimately, and we'll get into the reasons why, did not think that she was a missing person. That's also another reason why it took so long to ID her. There was never a missing persons report on Evelyn. So Evelyn, one day in December of 1976, called up her mother. Her mother says that she was at least 8 months, probably 9 months pregnant at this point in time. And she told her she wasn't feeling well. Obviously, you're 9 months pregnant, guys. You don't feel well. I don't know how many of you out there have had kids, but I can attest to the fact that in that last month of pregnancy, you're heavy, you're grouchy. You just want to not have to deal with this anymore. You don't feel good. Sometimes your stomach hurts. Sometimes your legs hurt. You just don't feel well. So she actually asked her mother to bring her over some soup. When her mother got there, when family members got there, no one was home. At some point in time, neighbors came over and told them that Sierra and Evelyn had moved. So this is the same day that they got the phone call from Evelyn asking for the soup. At some point in time, the family was actually let into the apartment to look around, I guess, maybe to see if there was any of Evelyn's belongings there. And the only thing that they found was in the kitchen, one of those old school metal baby buggies. That's it. That's all that remained. So the family was super concerned, guys. But, and of course, they never heard, we're talking about New Jersey, guys. They never heard about this case in Pennsylvania. They never heard about a body being found in Pennsylvania. In January of 1977, the Kalan family received a letter postmarked from Connecticut and written in Spanish from Luis Sierra. The letter said that Evelyn was happy, she was well, she had delivered a 9-pound baby boy that the couple had named Luis Sierra Jr., and that she would contact her family, not to worry about her. She would contact her family if and when she wanted to. This is the reason why there was no missing persons report, guys. The family thought that Evelyn was angry with them for some reason, like to the point where her mother actually carried this to the grave. She thought that her daughter was mad at her and wanted no contact with her when she died. And I think her mother just died recently, guys. So the family figured that at some point, if Evelyn wanted to, she would reach out to them. They thought she was relatively safe with Sierra, even though he had been abusive. Maybe they thought that the baby would help them along. He seemed to be happy from this letter about the baby and Evelyn as well. So because they figured she was safe with Sierra and that she was with Sierra, they never filed a missing persons report. And they did try to find her on their own. But at this point in time, you know, as the years passed by, you know, they figured Evelyn was an adult. She had purposely severed all contact. They tried Facebook, things like that, to no avail, obviously. The family was really heartbroken, though, guys. I want you to know how heartbroken they were, that they thought that Evelyn voluntarily cut off all contact because she wanted to. They were heartbroken because of this, but they also thought she must be living her own best life on her own. They were hopeful she would contact them. But like I said, members of the family did pass away under the impression that Evelyn was mad at them for some reason, and they thought it was their fault. So police talked to the family about Luis Sierra, guys, and his domestic violence against Evelyn, and they had found DNA on Evelyn. Okay, guys. The article said that the same DNA that was used to identify Evelyn also identified her killer. And of course, this was Luis Sierra. So he's been charged with 1 count of criminal homicide at this point in time, right now, like just recently, guys. Prosecutors feel that prosecutors think that more charges will be coming as the case moves along. But because this is an ongoing case and it's so relatively new, they haven't made any of that. They haven't said anything more about that. So at this point in time, it's just 1 charge of criminal homicide, but more than likely more charges will be coming. So Wiso had relocated at some point in time. You know, he might have just been passing through Connecticut and mailed the letter from there. He might have always been at this place, but anyway, to New York. He was working as a bus driver, and he was 63 years old when he was finally arrested. And he lived in Ozone Park, New York. He did have a family. I'm not sure if he had a wife at this point. Nothing was said about that. But he did have children. And like I said, Evelyn's DNA had been uploaded to CODIS in 2008, but it never identified anybody. So this could be because Luis Sierra hasn't committed any other crimes. It could also be because he kind of seems like a sneaky guy. It could also be because he just didn't leave any DNA laying around. The family has seen the facial reconstructions. So the ones that I've just shown you guys, the family has seen them and says that yes, there is a high degree of resemblance between Evelyn and the reconstructions. They don't have very many. Actually, they didn't have any pictures of Evelyn. This was because the family had gone through a huge fire in 1975, so basically the year before Evelyn went missing, and it destroyed almost everything, including the photographs. They did appeal to the public and friends of Evelyn's and other people who knew Evelyn. They did appeal to them, asking for them to send some photos. So as far as I know, the family does have a couple photos now because of this. And I'm just going to show you a picture, one of the few that have shown up about Evelyn. I'm just going to warn you guys, though, that these pictures are really grainy. So I don't know how much you're really going to be able to get out of it. Okay, just give me 1 second, guys. So this is Evelyn. I hope you guys can see that okay. I hope there's not too much of a glare on it. That's Evelyn. That's one of the few pictures they have of her. So police believe at some point before her disappearance, but after she called her mother, that the couple had an argument and this caused Luis to snap and he strangled her. He's already been abusive to her. That is well known. They argued for some reason and he did what he did. I have no idea. Okay, I have no idea why he then mutilated her face. It's a possibility that maybe he just didn't want her to be identified if she was ever found. I'm thinking that when he threw the suitcases or had the suitcases thrown in the water, he had hoped they would just go downstream and nobody would ever find them. But I think he mutilated her face. These are just my thoughts, guys. I don't know for sure. I think he mutilated her face in the hopes that no one would be able to identify her. But also we do know from some offenders that they are so filled with rage that they want to take away that person's identity. And that may have been another reason for the mutilation. I'm also guessing he dismembered her strictly to help transport her, to get her into those suitcases so that people wouldn't think he had done something to her, and transport her to Pennsylvania. Now, if she was thrown from a moving car, guys, and it does seem very probable, investigators do believe this, it would make sense that Sierra had an accomplice. Okay, maybe this was the person that knew how to, dismember with a degree of certainty. It could have been another person that had done the dismemberment, or it could have simply been a person. When I say accomplice, it could be an accomplice after the fact. It could have been a person that he had come with him just to throw the suitcases. Maybe they didn't even know what was in the suitcases. I'm doubting that, but I'm just saying it does make sense that there is at least one other offender. This is in my opinion, guys, strictly my opinion, for entertainment or educational purposes only, strictly my opinion. I believe that there was at least somebody else involved in the transportation and the dumping of Evelyn's body. But of course, we'll find out more about that in the weeks and months to come, guys, hopefully. So on April 28th of 2021, Sierra was extradited to Pennsylvania from New York. Obviously, the bodies were found there. They don't know if the crime was done there, but the bodies were found there. So he has to be tried in Pennsylvania. On April 29th, Luis Kalan Sr., who is 61 now and is the oldest of the Kalan kids, actually saw Sierra for the first time in 44 years. This was outside of the courthouse when Sierra was going to be going in to be arraigned on the count of criminal homicide. He was outside in the parking lot getting his temperature taken, like COVID protocols. And Luis Sr. saw him and called out, quote, "Hey, Wizzo, do you recognize me?" End quote. And quote, "Why did you do that?" End quote. He, of course, got no answer. None at all. When the family was allowed into the courthouse, once again, COVID protocols, not everybody can go in at once, but the family is allowed there because it is an arraignment. So when they did finally get in there, Luis yelled out to Sierra's kids, quote, "He killed your sister," end quote. Sierra is currently being held without bail. And police haven't revealed if he's confessed to this crime. They also haven't revealed how the prosecution is going to go forward in this crime. And they also haven't revealed if they believe that Evelyn was killed in Pennsylvania or was killed elsewhere and transported there. We don't know that at this point in time. There's not a whole lot of information coming out, guys, because it's still an active investigation. It's an ongoing investigation. And if they did reveal too much, it would jeopardize the integrity of the investigation. So that's why we're only getting bits and pieces. The family does have a GoFundMe page, guys. I believe it's on Facebook. If you want, go there, donate, guys, by all means. The family, this is the Kalan family, Colon, Evelyn, Eveyyln, Colon. Just in case you guys wanted to know, to look it up. They do have a GoFundMe page, guys, because they are trying to get a memorial for Evelyn built, Evelyn and the baby, in Pennsylvania. They have named the baby Evelyn Grace as well, because they felt it was something like her mother would want to have happen, and that a name her mother would have chosen. Like, it's still unbelievable to me that Sierra took the baby from the womb, maybe just to look at it. I don't know. Maybe he was angry about that. The fact that the baby, he could have been equally as angry about that. The fact that the baby was a girl, although it doesn't like appear like he mutilated the baby or anything like that. He may have been angry. I mean, it just strikes me as odd that in the letter, he knew full well that the baby was a girl, right? He committed this crime. But that in the letter, he wrote that it was a baby boy. It could have been in the hopes to further misidentify her, right? Because that's another thing. If the family had gone looking for Evelyn and had read missing persons reports, they would have thought that Evelyn would be by herself and maybe he'd have the baby or something like that. Or that Evelyn would have been with a baby boy, not a baby girl. It seems like Sierra is a little bit sneakier than what people think. I mean, he cleaned up this crime pretty well for 44 years, guys. There was nothing in the apartment. I don't know if they're going back in to test. It has been 44 years, but we do know that luminol can pick up very old blood stains, guys. So I don't know if they've gone and done that. Nothing about that has been released to see if she was actually killed in the apartment or not. But this guy seems to be pretty sneaky. He seems to be a little bit knowledgeable of things, like to dismember the body instead of carrying out in cardboard boxes or pretending she was asleep in the front seat. He had her dismembered, or he dismembered her himself and stuffed her in suitcases. And it doesn't appear that there was any blood coming from the suitcases either, guys. I can't tell you about what happened to her blood. Nothing like, there was blood in her for them to find that she was O, but I can't tell you anything else about that. That I can't. Sorry, guys. I know it's a lot of questions still. I'm sorry. That is pretty much the end of this video. I feel a great deal of sadness for the Kalan family. For 44 years, they believed her mother died believing that Evelyn was mad at her and that it was her fault that she didn't contact the family. For 44 years, Evelyn did not have a name. For 44 years, the baby didn't have a name. It's a very tragic story all the way around, but I'm glad that there's at least a little bit of closure at this point, that the family does know where she is, that the family has named the baby, and that they have found a suspect. I am very, very thankful of that at this point. So, like I said, guys, that's it. I guess just, you know, I always develop some questions. We're going to get to that in a second. I will be updating some cases. It will be a little bit further on. That's when I'm going to tell you guys the newer information on Septic Tank Sam. I've got some newer information on Kelvin Hoover, the guy that killed Christine Jessup. They do have some new things on him. And update this case, and also the case of Sherry Furtak. If you guys watched that video, you'll know that Greg Furtak was actually supposed to go to trial March 29th of this year. That's been pushed to September due to COVID. So it'll be after his trial that I'm hopefully able to update some of these cases. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about this? Do you think that there were two offenders involved? Do you think that Luis Sierra had somebody help him do this, or had somebody help him at least get rid of the evidence after the fact, at least get rid of the body? Do you think that he worked as a butcher or was a hunter? Nothing's been said so far. Or do you think he was affiliated with somebody? When she told her mother that if something happened to her, Luis was involved, it seems like perhaps she knew some other people that might have been too, but perhaps not. That could be just conjecture on my behalf. Why do you think he snapped in the first place? I mean, he was already violent. He had already been abusing her. What do you think made him flip out at this point in time, though? What do you think pushed him to this point? Do you think he was involved in any other criminality? So like I said, DNA was not in the DNA database, but that doesn't mean he wasn't involved in other crimes, you know, Grand Theft Auto or I don't know, stealing or oh geez, or I wouldn't say rape because that would be DNAs, but do you think he was involved in any other criminality at all? It seems like he knows some stuff, guys. It's possible that he was involved in other criminality and just knew enough not to leave DNA behind. I mean, he didn't really leave that much around in the case of this. Why do you think he sexually assaulted her? Why do you think that he removed her ears, nose, and breasts? Probably, you know, as a way so that she wouldn't be identified. Could have been due to anger. I mean, this guy seems to know a thing or two. Do you think he was involved in anything else? What do you guys think? Just let me know. Tell me in the comments below. Let me know if I've done this case some justice. I hope I have. If I've given you all the information, I really hope that I did this justice. It's an American case. It's one I'm familiar with, but because I'm not from the States, I'm not really familiar with how you say everything. So hopefully I did okay. Hopefully, guys, you will like this video. Hopefully you'll subscribe. Hopefully you guys will hit the notification bell. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And hopefully you guys will leave me a comment. And I want to say thank you to the viewer and subscriber of mine that recommended this case. A big thank you to you for pointing this case out to me and getting me interested in it. And I am glad that there's at least some closure for the family. So hopefully you guys have a good Mother's Day, and I will see you back here next week. Bye.